Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. I'm joined with attorney Rachel King, who's also a serial entrepreneur from the age of 12. Rachel, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation. But before we get started, just introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Rachel today?
I am an attorney first and foremost. That's what most people want to hear. I own a law firm in Southern California, but I do strategic litigation throughout California, Arizona, Texas, and Kentucky. Outside of that, though, I am also a mom, I'm a wife, I live on a farm. And so there's a lot of different things that I'm involved with on a daily basis, all that affect my life. And also, I think actually make me a better lawyer for my clients.
Love that. Love that. So one of your main practices is elder law. And I think in our, we were introduced by a mutual connection. And as we were kind of discovering who each other was at one point, when that came out, I'd mentioned to you about that was something that we were going through with my mother-in-law last year and into the beginning parts of this year. And it's really, quite honestly, like a mind-numbing process for me. I'm sure it's, much more, easier for you to navigate nowadays. But what was it that made you want to get into, to elder law specifically?
I think I don't think, I've come to learn that I am a problem solver. I really enjoy taking people's problems and giving them a solution, which is, I think, one of the reasons I ended up in law. There's nothing better than getting paid to give advice, right? We all naturally want to give advice. And so I get to do that. I get to show my clients that are going through probably one of the most devastating times of their life a way out. I didn't actually end up in elder law intentionally. It kind of just organically grew. It turns out it is one of my most favorite areas of law. If I could honestly pay all of my bills and only take on elder law cases, I certainly would. It's sad that there's a need, as much need for elder law, elder abuse, conservatorships as there is. But again, I really like working with my clients. I like working with the families who, even if maybe there's a history of dementia and you expect that maybe it's going to come up at some point, when you're actually facing it, it's so emotional for the family. I mean, this, right? And then you throw in the fact that you just want to help and you have all these legal barriers that you have to overcome. And so how do you do that? And navigating the legal system while you're facing the emotional, impacts of something like, cognitive impairment or just the natural aging process, a death in the family, or, worst case, financial elder abuse can just be paralyzing. So I really like to be able to come in and show that there is a solution, there is a way out, and we can get not only the family members, but also the senior, the care or the help that they need for the rest of their life. So I really love it. I fortunately have learned how to stay emotionally disconnected from my clients, which, I've had people say, oh, it's just so hard. It is really hard. But honestly, if I went down with all of my clients, I wouldn't be a good advocate. I wouldn't be a good attorney. And so I do work really hard to maintain an emotional distance between my cases and myself so that I can continue to practice and I can look at a snenario from a different vantage point than the family members.
Yeah. I can't imagine how difficult that is to kind of separate yourself, because there's a ton of emotions that are taking place, during that time. So, I imagine it's a huge asset for you to really be able to separate it. But, how do you do it? I mean, I that's something I couldn't do. I mean, I sadly get emotionally involved in just about everything. Like, I don't even understand when people say it's just business, it's not personal. Like, I always take everything personal. So how do you keep that separate? Was there a certain thing? I guess, did it come easily for you, or is it something you had to work at over time to separate yourself?
I started in family law. And when I started in family law, which is almost as emotional as I think I've ended up in like the two most emotional areas of law that exist, I was faced with a lot of attorneys that were having to deal with burnout. And I was actually told very early on in my career that I was going to face burnout if I continued in family law. And I really took that to heart. And I thought, well, why are attorneys facing burnout and getting so exhausted in these areas of law that they can't do it anymore? And the reality is that it's emotionally very, very challenging. It's hard to hear about families being devastated, whether it's in family law or in some kind of elder law situation. And so I made it a point to tell my clients and to really practice it. I still have to remind myself every day, right, Dan? But that I am not the emotional support system. I'm the legal support system. And I have that talk with clients almost on day one during a consultation. Is this, whether it's a divorce or a dementia or an elder abuse, whatever the situation is that is so emotional, I tell them, you need to get an emotional support system. Who are you going to call and vent to? Who is going to validate all of your feelings and listen to them? Because it can't be me. Now, that being said, we do it a lot in my office. We end up, because we have to know the whole story. So we do end up getting a lot of the emotional details. And what I try and do is and every time I get a bit emotional, I try and just take it back to the law. And I also am very transparent with my clients. Like, I'm so sorry that happened. That is horrible. It really doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter from a legal standpoint. And I try and always bring them back to that. But I do that not only so that they understand what is legally significant, but also so that I can remind them that while I care that that's going on, it doesn't matter to me from a legal standpoint, and I have to have that divide. I'm also very transparent with my clients that I can't go down with you. I'm so sorry that these horrible things are happening, and that I had a client whose mom was in very late stage Alzheimer's, didn't really remember her anymore, didn't remember to eat, was probably in the last stages of decline, and we had to go in and get a conservatorship at that point. My client was already taking care of her mom, right? She was doing everything. But at this point, her mom thought that she was coming in. There's a bit of paranoia sometimes that goes on. There's a little bit of anger with somebody who has dementia or Alzheimer's. And she thought her daughter was going to steal from her. She was just dead set. I'm opposing all of this. You're stealing from me. You're taking it. And it was devastating for my client, who was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I just want to make sure your house doesn't go into foreclosure. And while I empathize with my clients and I understand the emotional toll this is taking, I can't make you feel better. I can just say, okay, this is what we can do from a legal standpoint, and let's move forward with that. And what are your goals legally, and how do we get there? And all of the rest of it, you got to take to your own support system, because I can't be it.
Yep. So you have a little bit of a military background as well. How has that helped you in the law practice today?
Well, everybody that knows or has been in the military knows that we are broken down to be built back up, right? And you have these set of rules that you have to follow and discipline. I think that's really what has helped me through my practice, is the discipline of, you have to do this, and kind of embracing the suck, right? That's one of the things that whether you want to do it or not, you have to have the discipline to get it done. And not everything is fun. A lot of things suck, but embrace it, get through it, dig down. And once you're on the other side of it, it really does feel so good to accomplish things that you didn't know. Now, in basic training, it was things like push-ups and running and obstacle courses and things like that. But once you did it on the other side, you were like, wow, this is amazing. It feels really good. And I take that same philosophy through cases with my clients, through ownership of a law firm. Honestly, I take it through parenting. It's just that life has sucky moments. But if you just get through it and you learn something on the other side, then you're going to be better for it. And you're not going to be living in this place where it's this very uncomfortable place for very long.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long after your military service did you decide you wanted to get into law? Was it like right as you came out, or was there a process you went through before you decided to get your law degree?
I actually knew I was going to be a lawyer when I was in high school. And then when I graduated high school, I quickly learned that I did not want to go to college right away. So that's how I landed myself in the military, was not showing up in college classes, but still having to pay for them. So I joined the military. It was still in my plan though to get to law school. So during my military career, I got my bachelor's degree. When I got out of the service, it was with the intention of going to law school and using my VA benefits to pay for law school, which, thank you to all you taxpayers, that actually happened. And so the trajectory of going to law school was always a plan. It just didn't necessarily go in the order that I had initially expected to, nor that my family did.
Right. Well, and I think the fact that, you know, that's part of life though. Sometimes we're going to take a detour, but we end up at the same destination. Sometimes we take a detour and we find out that what we thought we wanted in high school wasn't actually what we wanted, and we just go down a completely different path as well. So the fact that your detour took you back to, where you were originally aiming at in high school is pretty impressive. But I mean, even that, like, how has that helped you practicing law now? Just that it's not going to happen the way we want, but if we get to the destination, that's a win at that point.
I took a road that many people would still like, well, they looked at it as a crazy road, and then they still probably would look at it as a crazy road. I joined the military. I had a baby what I would consider very young. So I had my first child at 21 years old while I was in the military. I wasn't married. And then I figured that whole thing out, got my degree, got married, had two more children. Actually, one of my son was born 10 weeks before I started law school. I had a 10-week-old when I got to law school, and then I had another baby during law school, and then I started my own practice. So many people tell me, what were you thinking? That's crazy. And what I have to say is, first of all, you take your own path. And that was the path that I wanted to take. I would never change it. I absolutely adored being a mom in my 20s. Now that I'm entering my 40s, I'm super glad that my kids are almost grown too. So, but if you have something happen and it doesn't go well, you just put one foot in front of the other. And I truly have really done that. It was hard at the beginning. It's gotten easier. Now I find that I've done it so many times that when things don't go right, it's almost my natural reaction to just say, okay, so what's the next step in this? I just need to take the next step, because if I can take that next step, I'll somehow make my way out of this bad place, or this thing that I wasn't expecting to happen. So throughout my life journey and my detours, that's been something that I've really fallen back on, is just, okay, so the next step, let's just take the next step. And if you keep taking the next steps, eventually you will land yourself where you want to go, even if you didn't know that was what it was.
Yeah, and I love that philosophy, and it's so effective just in life. It's like, just keep moving forward, just keep one more step, and then after you take that step, just take one more step. Like, don't think of it as, all right, it's going to take me 1,000 steps to get to my destination. It's literally one step at a time, one day at a time. So I love that analogy for sure.
And one thing I just want to say real quick is, that wasn't how I always was. I still can get what I consider paralyzed with being overwhelmed and too much going on. Like, I am one of those people that can literally sit on my couch and watch Hallmark TV and piss away an entire day, because I just can't fathom doing something because I'm so overwhelmed. So it still happens to me, but I've, like you said, I've learned, all right, just get up off the couch and like brush your teeth or open your email and just go through one email. If you just take the one next step, then it kind of snowballs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think, anybody who says they don't have days like that is just flat out lying to you, because at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, we're all still human beings. We all still get in our ruts, but the key is to get out of that rut at some point and take that next step. So, I love when people can be honest and say, look, it's not like I'm not the poster child for this philosophy. Like there's days where, I look and it's 3 o'clock and I'm still in my PJs sort of thing, so
Yeah,
um,
exactly. We're all human.
yeah. So we all have those moments, but again, as long as we're not, stuck in a continuum of those moments and, we get out of it and we do take that next step and move forward, I think is the big key for sure. So I briefly had mentioned in the introduction, that you're a serial entrepreneur, and I don't think a lot of people view attorneys as entrepreneurs, so to speak. Um, they just don't necessarily, you know, define them as that. But yet, when you own your own practice and you're out there getting cases, I mean, that's exactly what you are. You're an entrepreneur. You're using your own business, and so what was it that drove you, um, from a young age to really be an entrepreneur?
I was raised among business owners. I come from a divorced family, so I spent school year with my mom and my stepdad, and the summers with my dad and my stepmom. And in both households, there was business ownership. So very early on, I learned that you have quite a bit more flexibility when you are self-employed, right? You can take the vacations. I didn't, as a child, honestly, see that you have to work all the time. There's no such thing as a true vacation, but you everything is viewed differently. So I was, I owning a business was very comfortable for me. When I was 12, I was my parents didn't pay for very much, and I have always wanted lots of things. So that was right when pagers pagers were a thing, right? So I wanted a pager. My parents said that's like the stupidest thing ever. You're too young. You can't have any of this stuff. So I thought, well, if I pay for it, I probably have a better argument for my parents to get it to me, or to sign the contracts. And so I went out and I started babysitting, and then I got quite a few customers, and I started sharing those babysitting jobs with my friends. And that was kind of I went out and got business cards. That was the first time that I really owned a business. I will say, Dan, I didn't know I was a business owner at that point, right?
Right.
I just thought, well, this is easier. It's a little more professional. I liked the idea of having business cards. It wasn't until I was probably 16 that my mom was like, well, that was when you first opened your first business. And I was like, oh, cool. Since then, I've owned, when I was 16, I opened a swim instruction company where we did private swimming lessons. My husband and I have opened quite a few businesses. I run a law firm, and I run some other businesses on the side. And the reason that I claim being an entrepreneur almost over being a lawyer is I want to shout out Diane Singleton Smith. She's a local attorney, and she told me after I graduated law school, she said, she had a law firm that I kind of aspired to have. And she said, don't forget that you own a company. You don't just practice law. And I thought, oh, I could see how you would easily forget that, right? As you get so kind of consumed with your clients' cases and court and all of these things that you forget, and you want to help everybody, that you forget that you got to pay your own bills, and so I've really always taken to the idea of a business ownership. I love being an attorney, but maybe I shouldn't admit this, but like I really like owning businesses more than I like being an attorney. It's my jam.
Yeah. Well, and I never really heard it described like that, where you said that above all, you got to remember that you're you own a business, because I'm sure, there's many times you're approached by people who have, a very good cause and are looking for, some sort of pro bono work to be done. And like you said, you can't do it all. I'm sure you probably do some of that work, but how, you know, how do you kind of balance that and make sure that you're paying your bills, so to speak?
Well, I have pretty good, I can always improve, but I have pretty good basic business keeping skills. So I have a bookkeeper and all of that. And I watch my finances. My whole office staff knows that the fundamentals of working for me are don't mess with my money and don't lie to me, right? But beyond that, when I first started practicing, I, of course, was approached by, like, everybody comes out of the woodwork. People that I had not even liked in the Army, like, we weren't friends. We didn't like each other, yet they came and found me on Facebook and they were like, I have a legal question. And I was like, I don't even like you. Like, don't pretend to be my friend. So I put in rules right out the gate, right? And I still maintain them. And that is that people will say that's so harsh. I do not give anybody other than my immediate family. And my immediate family consists of my sisters, my husband, my parents, and my children, free legal advice. My best friend since middle school, she pays me if she has a question, because I had to have a really clearly defined boundary for myself so that I wouldn't get caught up in that. A second thing that I look at, and I do try and help people that need help, but I do have to balance it. So I try and help the people that appreciate, and I've gotten better at figuring this out, appreciate their circumstances and appreciate that if I give them a discount or I do something for less or for free, that it's not taken for granted. So for example, I had a potential client once who called me and was living out of his car, and his children, mom was, I don't know, MIA on drugs or something, and they had 3 little children, and he was about to get his kids taken away by CPS. And he called me and he said, can you help me? And I said, well, sure. Is this going to cost this much money, right? And his response immediately was, well, you must not have children, because if you had children, then you would never let me lose my children. And I have a constitutional right to an attorney. And that was enough for me to say, I am not the right attorney for you. You are going to, first of all, you don't have a constitutional right to an attorney for free, right? I have a constitutional right not to be indentured servitude, enslaved, right? So, and if that's your first attitude, then you're going to just not appreciate anything that I do or that my office does. So I try and really balance it. I have a really great team who sometimes I'll say, oh, I really feel bad for this person. I'm going to waive all fees. And they're like, don't do that. This person is X, Y, and Z. Or on the flip side, I'll say, I'm going to take this case, but I'm not going to make any financial accommodations. And they'll come in and say, I think we should. So we really play well off of each other, but I'm very careful about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I'd sold real estate for a little bit during, past careers, and
so
yeah, and you always have the family member, the friends who are like, are you going to charge me full commission, yada yada yada? And it's like, well, yeah. And actually, in reality, I should probably charge you a little bit more, because I'm probably going to end up doing even more work for you because you're a friend or a family member.
I'm going to answer your text messages in the middle of the night where I normally wouldn't. That's what I tell people is, you're going to pay full price, like my best friend, right? You're going to pay me my hourly rate. But guess what? I'm probably going to do more for you. Like when we're chatting about our kids and you ask me a real quick legal question, I'm not going to go bill you for it because I don't have time and I'm not going to remember, right? So not that, you as a realtor didn't have an exceptional level of service, but like your heart is in it a little bit more. So it's just, I think that's where they get the benefit. You don't ask me for a discount because I can't take a discount to the grocery store to buy cheese, but my heart will be in your case. And so you may get, the sprinkles on top or something.
No doubt. So, with the fact that you're a practicing attorney, have your own firm, and you also have some other businesses that you quote unquote said dabble with on the side. How do you balance that? Because practicing law can consume a lot of time. So so how do you even have time to dabble in other businesses on the side, and then how do you balance that and keep from going absolutely insane?
I'm a true millennial because I have a side hustle, and I don't think anybody ever considers like attorneys with side hustles, right? But like I do, I have a side hustle. So I've also learned quite a bit. I've done a lot over the last, oh, well, let me take a step back if you don't mind, Dan. When in 2019, I was ready to get out of law. I was so stressed. My work-life balance had gone to complete, well, just crap, right? And I looked at my husband in 2019 and I said, I know I've only been an attorney for a quarter of my career, but I don't think I'm going to be in it for I don't think I'm going to even make it 5 more years if things keep going this way. It was so bad. And so in 2019, I really took a look and I thought, well, that's not practical. It's not practical for me to stop working in 5 years. So how am I going to make being an attorney work properly with the rest of my life? And that included being able to go to my kids' not graduations, they weren't graduating, but like their school functions and going for a run and just taking some time for myself. So in 2019, that was a big focus where I revamped my entire work schedule. I revamped how my office operated. I was actually really lucky with COVID. I know that most people say that COVID was horrible. I think COVID allowed me the opportunity to rebalance and restructure my legal career in a way that was going to benefit me. And then when I picked up my side hustles, right? Like I truly live on a farm. We have hundreds and hundreds of fruit and avocado trees. We have dozens of chickens. We have turkeys. We have so I have to live on a full farm. And I also manage real estate. I really like real estate investing. So I only manage our real estate, but I do that. When I chose these particular things, it was with the understanding that I like to work. Working is kind of my hobby as well as my children. My family is like my hobby. So how can I marry the two so that I can have a work-life balance and not be totally consumed in law? And that's where moving on to a farm kind of helped. We have you have to go outside, right? There's a lot to do outside. So you get that, the kids get involved. It is just it's completely different than the practice of law. And then real estate, I just find really fun. And it's so completely different. I'm not an agent or anything, but it's so completely different than law that allowing myself to have these side gigs allows me to decompress and step away from the law in a way that I need to be the most effective lawyer.
Yeah, I love that. And I think 2020 did present an opportunity for many people to reset and rebalance, which I think was a good thing. However, I think a lot of people lost that and kind of went right back to their old ways once things started to open back up again. How did you after you reset, how were you able to kind of stay focused and realize that you got to commit to this new balance that you've created?
Well, like I said, I had already decided this needed to be done prior to the pandemic. So it wasn't actually that the pandemic forced the rebalance. I'd already made this realization prior. And so I put it in place, and then the pandemic allowed it. So for example, I decided in 2019, I was always a runner. But then when I opened my own firm, running took the back seat. I never ran. I was probably in the worst shape of my life. And I thought, I gotta prioritize like my health. I'm gonna die if I don't get it together with the stress level. So I already started taking half an hour 3 times a week on my work calendar to work out. What the pandemic did is it allowed that to be easy while the habit was built, right? So now I don't have to, tick off any clients or courts. or make it that difficult because like they're all closed. So that was really lovely. And then as you're right, I actually opened my firm. We went completely remote during the pandemic, and then I allowed that hybrid option. And everybody likes to work in their office, in the office. So we are, even though we have hybrid opportunities, my entire staff comes in to the office, but I've made my boundaries really clear to my office. So I think you have to accept personal responsibility. I worked for 3 years during the pandemic at creating a lifestyle that allowed me to be a good lawyer. The only person that would be at fault if I undid all of that would be myself. It wouldn't be the fact that the pandemic was over and that we all went back to work. It's me. So
Right.
I do prioritize myself a lot. I work out every day. I do the things that I need to, and um, I'm okay with working Saturdays if it means that I take a Wednesday afternoon off, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's so important, that we society kind of gets us into this rat race of forgetting about ourselves and not taking that time. So I think even with your busy schedule, the fact that you can still understand that your own mental and physical health is really, like, if that goes down, everything else goes down with it. So you really got to focus on that, first and foremost. So I love the fact that you can keep that as a priority as you're moving forward.
And I think during the pandemic, it gave me and probably many other people the opportunity to witness it. Right now, I have better work-life balance. I'm able to spend more time with my children, which again I really enjoyed. So I see how that affects my ability to parent. I see how my marriage improved by having less stress in my life. I see how I was able to be a better boss and a better attorney. So I really was able, and I paid a lot of attention to the fact that my mood now and how I take care of myself really affects every other part of my life. And so in order to have the best possible staff and all of these things, I need to make sure that I take care of myself. So at this point, it goes far beyond like me feeling good and self-care. It's like, in order to be like a pleasant person to the other people in my life, I need to do it.
Yes. And you mentioned a couple different times about, how well you and your staff work with each other. And, that really just comes from creating a culture in the office. So, when you first started out in business, how intentional was it for you to want to create that, culture? Because it really, it comes from the top. If the leader can say whatever he or she wants to say, but you've got to really create that culture. So, how intentional was it when you first started to know you wanted to create a positive culture that everybody would enjoy, like you said, coming to work as opposed to having the option to work remotely?
The mission of my law firm, actually, the reason I started it when it was just me, was to create a law firm that I wanted to work at and that other people would want to work at and that clients would want to come to, right? So that was actually foundational. As I was deciding whether to apply for jobs and work at another law firm or create my own, the reason I started my own was because I didn't want to get bogged down in one of these really intense structures. So that's always been fundamental. Over the years, I have failed many a time at being a good leader. I wish I could say, even though I had the best of intentions, that I knew right out the gate, but I didn't. I got too, I made the mistake of being friends with my staff, which is different than being friendly with your staff. I made some mistakes and I noticed them. I think the biggest one was when I hired my mom, which, goodness, I'll never hire a family member ever again, but it didn't work. And it was really, really hard on my family. But it was through that I realized it would be important for me to take steps to become the best kind of leader that I could. So I have to work on it. I still do. One of the ways, though, that I build a really strong team that I've learned is something that I take back from the military, which is mandatory fun days. We do them quarterly, and we take, a day or half a day off of work and go do something that is completely unrelated to law, to just get to see a different side of everybody. And then I think you lead with integrity. I think in 2023, and maybe because I'm a millennial, I'm living the idea of work-life balance, whereas older generations or younger generations, that's not their primary focus. So I really try and lead with that you have kids, and goodness, I don't want to work somewhere where I can't go to my kids' Christmas performance. So you should go to your kids' Christmas performance, still get the work done, right? You don't get to not work. But if you can flex a little bit, I really try and have that understanding with everybody that I work with, that I am the boss, I am the owner. And so there are certain boundaries that I have, and ultimately I'm paying everybody to do their job. But at the same time, I want the culture to be that we work together, and no one job, whether it's mine or the person that takes out the trash, is any less important to the running of our law firm, to handling our clients' cases. Everybody is an integral part and very necessary. And I really try to have everybody on the team feel that way.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Rachel, is there anything that we missed that you think would be important to our listeners?
Well, it's like a double-edged sword for an attorney. I think everybody should know. I don't know who, when you're listening, I don't know what you're going through in life. First of all, know that one step in front of the other. If you're involved in a legal situation, it is, I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, but it has been proven to be one of the most stressful, top 5 most stressful things you'll ever go through. And so know that and be patient with yourself. And at the same time, get to know an attorney. It's better to know an attorney before you need an attorney than to need an attorney and have to just scramble to try and find one. So from a legal standpoint, that's what I would say. From a personal standpoint, I tell my kids every day, all you can do is the best that you can right now. And I really live by that, is the best that you can in this immediate moment. And if you fall apart the next moment, that's okay, as long as you did the best in this moment right now.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Rachel, how would people find you on the internet if they want to reach out and get any sort of legal advice or anything at all? How do they find you on the internet?
I'm on all of the socials. I'm at the Lawyer King, so you can find me on TikTok and Twitter and I don't know what, Instagram. I don't even know all of them anymore, but you can find me there. You can also see my website, thelawyerking.com. And on all of those places, you'll find my business phone number that you can text or call. Text messages come right to my cell phone. That's really important to me, to be available for my clients and to create an atmosphere around their legal situation where they have a team working for them. So if that's what you're looking for, reach out. We're happy to guide you, or if we can't help you, maybe send you in the right direction.
Awesome. So Rachel, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of the Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Rachel does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
I don't step over trash. I pick up trash and I put it in the trash can, even if it's not mine.
I love that answer. I love that answer.
That's so silly, right? But I really do.
If my wife and I stop at a rest area or something, and she gets out and there's trash on the curb or something, she absolutely will pick it up and put it in a trash can. I forget where we were. We were at a spot, just a parking lot somewhere, and I had to do a podcast in the RV. So, she does something to keep herself occupied. And when she came in, I was like, what'd you do? And she's like, I cleaned up the parking lot. So she literally, while I'm recording a podcast, she's out there with a trash bag, just picking stuff up and then threw it in the trash
That's awesome. I can't stand when my kids step over trash. I'm like, did you not see it? Like, just pick it up and throw it away. I was in the Dominican Republic a couple weeks ago, and I rented a paddleboard and I took it out into the ocean, and I came back and I had this pile of plastic bags on my paddleboard. And the guy that was taking the paddleboard said, "What is all of this?" And I said, "Well, it's trash. I found plastic bags in the ocean, and I wasn't just gonna like paddle past them. That would be horrible." And he was
Right.
like, so he like goes to put them back in the ocean. I'm like, "Oh, okay, let me pick them up and take them to a trash can. We are not going to put them back. Let's just take the plastic bags and put them in the trash can."
Yeah. The other thing my wife will do is actually return shopping carts to the little shopping cart holders, because it's amazing how many people love to leave a shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot. It drives her crazy. So she'll go out and
Yeah,
just
so
gather them up.
she's a better woman than me. I do sometimes, but I'll be honest. I've been in like the Costco shopping center parking lot where they have one cart return clear on the other side of the parking lot that's like half a mile away. And I'm like, this is poorly planned. I'm not doing that. So your wife is better than me at that, but I don't step over trash. So I'm gonna continue to hang my hat on that.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rachel, I really appreciate you taking the time and doing the show with me. I think people get a lot of value out of this conversation. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, feel free to pick up a copy of one of my books. Rachel, again, really appreciate the time and love the conversation.
Thank you so much.